Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spirit School. I am so excited to share another Spirit Schooler with you, somebody who I think you're going to be really interested to hear their story. And I'm going to introduce you today to Will. How are you, Will?
Hi everyone, I'm great. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to speak, Danielle.
Oh, no worries. My conversations with you last week were actually what sparked the idea around bringing more Spirit School Collective members onto the podcast because we know in the collective how amazing everybody is there. And I really wanted to share the incredible people at Spirit School with the Spirit School audience. And it was because of the unique work that you do and the unique conversations that we're able to have. So I'm looking forward to going in deeper with those with you today. And I just wanted to start off with letting people know how we met. You and I are probably a little bit relatively new to one another just in the past few months, but the impact that you have made in the community has been really great.
Yeah, I feel like when I am at my best, I really flourish with people and it's part of, I think, who I am. I just connect very deeply with people like right away. And
Mhm.
that's like a wonderful thing. But it's also, if you don't know how to regulate like your emotions and your like the overwhelm that you can experience connecting with people so easily, I can really feel the difference. And so I'm being on this platform, it's just been so easy to connect with people. It's just within a week of the first time I connected with someone and they gave me a reading and it was so moving and so good. I was
Mhm.
crying. And so it was just right off the bat, I was like, I think I found a home. Yeah.
I love that. I really appreciate that. And your medicine that you bring into the space is so needed right now.
Mm.
And it's something that our audience has been asking for.
I think when I started to really embrace what it means to be a highly sensitive person, it's recognized in psychology as, a specific trait that 15 to 20% of the population have. And it's categorized through you experience emotions very deeply, you process information very deeply, you're a little more susceptible to sensory overload. So self-care and nervous system care is really important. And highly sensitive people on the fourth characteristic, they're very attuned to subtle cues and subtle things, shifts in the environment. Part of my research is that I want to introduce not only is it subtle cues in the environment, but it's also subtle energies. And I really believe that you can feel other people's emotions, you can feel other people's intentions. And when the intention is off, you can feel it
Mm.
as a highly sensitive person. And I think the struggle in my life has been those ways of being are not really recognized by science or by people. Like we're still moving into recognizing the subtle energies that we sort in subtle ways we influence each other. But I have always been very empathic, very affected by how I am treated, whether positively or negatively. Like I, I feel it very deeply, and I am a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. And so it was about almost 7 years ago that I got into recovery. And on my healing journey, I look back and I say, and I can see just like why I turned to substances so extremely. Like I just had no way of regulating my emotions, regulating my nervous system. My body felt it was like in survival mode, a
Yeah.
constant state of survival. And I had to, I was either, I was on my way to no longer existing or I needed to really make some changes.
Mhm.
And in that journey, I found how essential it is for the highly sensitive to really be very aware of their emotional health, their mental health, their physical health, their spiritual health. Like it isn't for me because of my high sensitivity, it is personal development is a requirement. I,
Mm.
I can't I can't be static. It's just who I am, and I've accepted that about myself. And you get to a point where you are like, wow, personal development is amazing. It's hard,
Yeah.
but it's amazing. You just realize so much about yourself, and so that's how I ended up getting doing my PhD now in mind body medicine, and really focusing on matching the inside and the outside. So if the inside is good, the outside is good.
And I love that you said that teach mediumship through a personal development lens because I know how impactful it is. And if you work on the medium, that creates the sustainability. How many people are walking around picking up other people's stuff, identifying it as their own? And I can only imagine psychologically what
Mm.
impact that would have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's very easy. You just very much feel very gaslit all the time. You feel very, you're second guessing yourself. You are like, okay, I guess maybe I'm not picking that up. It can very easily, especially as a young child, a young, highly sensitive child, turn into sort of a shame loop. You're doubting yourself so often that your self confidence can really suffer from that. It really is a matter of there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You just haven't found what works yet. But you got to shift your perception.
And I was like, that's so compassionate. That was such a compassionate approach to it because I think when you're like, why can't I get this? I'm stronger than this. And we always think it's about will, no pun intended. And we can be really hard on ourselves. And I really, your approach, that approach just feels a lot more compassionate, which
Mm.
leaves space for change. You can't bully yourself into repair work. Is it fair to say you're getting a PhD in highly sensitive people?
I'll take that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what your dissertation's on?
Yeah, it's moving in the direction of what's called vantage sensitivity. So highly sensitive people are deeply impacted by negative experiences, and they're also deeply impacted by positive experiences. And so my training program is called Vantage Sensitivity Training. And basically it's taking the qualities of a highly sensitive person and just amplifying them and making them into assets. And a lot of that requires a lot of inner work and a lot of increased self-awareness and going down a journey. The most important thing for a highly sensitive person is that they should feel supported. If they feel supported and like safe in an environment, they will excel. And if they do not feel safe, they will be deeply impacted by it. And while being highly sensitive can have its absolute challenges, it can have its incredible benefits too. Yeah.
Yeah.
When really fostered in a healthy environment.
Yeah, I even think we were talking before we hit record about how healing it is just connection with one another, right? Like, and it's hard to truly connect with other people if you don't feel safe or you're feeling judged, and that's medicine in itself. And so you're not really able to connect to anything or anyone if you're not able to accept that part of yourself. I guess as somebody who has never gone through the route that you're going through, like the academia, which I really appreciate, how does one research something like this? Like, what does that research process like look like? And then I'm curious if there's been anything groundbreaking that has come through this where you're like, this is going to change the worldview on this
Mm.
topic.
Yeah. I think if uh, so in 1993, I think it was, her name is Dr. Elaine Aron. She wrote about this trait. So it emerged in the 90s. And since then, they have found that in over 100 different species as a survival strategy, that 15 to 20% of over 100 species of the population is highly sensitive. So it's like a cohesive survival strategy with along with the 80% who are not, who can don't need the recovery time that we do.
Mhm.
I found the more I remember like getting into recovery, I had been without a home for 3 years. And so like my ability to connect with anybody or feel good or have any self-confidence, like it was shot.
Yeah.
But what I found to be the most effective solution for me was going to the recovery meetings, which is almost 100 years old since that came about, the AA recovery meetings. And that has been the most effective way that people alleviate their substance dependency.
Yeah.
Beyond the treatment centers, beyond any other modality, it is community. I believe that very much. And it was within this community where I started to notice within myself that when I felt safe, I had so much more insight into my life. And I could see this in myself, and I could see it in the people that I was on the recovery journey with. Is that when people like these very like hurt, oftentimes very destructive people, when they were put into an environment where they were supported and felt like they could be heard and seen, which is recovery meetings,
Mhm.
that's when I would know, I would be like, your empathy is connected to your safety. You're like, I see that. I see the more I am safe, the more I can empathize with situations. The more unsafe I felt, the less I could do that. And I see that in my everyday life all the time. but I would see it in other people, and it was almost like a marker of someone's kindness or empathy on where they were in their recovery.
Yeah.
And it just was like, okay, all these diagnoses of ADHD, depression, anxiety, like all of these diagnoses, like they're helpful in helping me understand the symptoms, but they're not the problem. That's not the problem. It really felt like at the end of the day, what my body needed was to feel safe and heard and supported. And
Yeah.
from there, and that's when I was just like, what is this? What is this magic I'm like seeing and feeling? And that's when I came across highly sensitive, and it was an actual thing that had been studied over the years, but I had never heard of it before. And so that's how I came to this journey and realizing that, and I really believe I what I my intention is to make a training program targeted for the highly sensitive that could
Mhm.
then be used in substance abuse treatment centers in addition to what already is going on. But it really is a matter of shifting our perception on how healing works. Like medical doctors and all that is wonderful and helpful, but it all starts inside. It
Yeah.
all starts from the heart. Like you got to learn how to feel safe, and all of the paths in your life that feel unsafe, figure out how to resolve that. And there's wonderful support systems. And I don't want it to make it sound like it's easy, because it is
Yeah.
not. And it is not linear. It is completely, you will fail and then you will rise again and then fail and rise. Like that's how you know it's working, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And then I find too, it's not about it not coming up again. It's about over time, it's like the time between the reaction and the coping shortens, right? It's like the
Yeah.
resilience builds and the resilience becomes like sticky. What is like one or two things somebody can do in a moment that may help them snap out of whatever it is that's coming up for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like answering that question can be done through like the physical body, addressing and regulating the physical body, different exercises, massaging the ear,
Mm.
lightly pulling it away from your head, and just like different points in the ear can help stimulate that vagus nerve and help relax the
Yeah.
body. A couple like EFT, there's quite a few that actually can start in the body, which is really nice. But then there's also really recognizing how to ground your overwhelming moments.
Mm.
And so I found that sometimes when I would talk about my experiences from the past, I would just start shaking
Yeah.
and I wouldn't understand what was going on. And it was my physical body trying to manage this very intense energy. And so part of releasing and regulating that energy is can be done through the body, but it can also be done through the mind. And how you find ways to ground into the earth, connect with a tree. I oftentimes will visualize myself just like grabbing a tree and just like holding on tight.
Yeah.
It's just it starts in the body and it starts in the mind. And if you can so get those both in a cohesive state, then you will start to feel that sense of safety. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think if people are interested, polyvagal theory has been very wonderful in helping me understand how information is blocked or allowed to flow through the body.
One thing I just found myself intuitively doing in the past years, like stomping my feet on the ground to come back. I'm just gonna stomp my feet on the ground and like come
Yeah.
back to it. And yeah, this is very helpful for people. My one thing that stands out for me too, as I was preparing for this interview, is you do personal training, but I forgot how you phrase it, but it's called like compassion training. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm a personal trainer and then a wellness coach. And my business started, I got my personal training certificate in October of 2019, and then the pandemic hit. And then I started my own personal training business. And I remember starting it, and all of a sudden, you get a download, and it was fitness with compassion.
Oh,
And I was
thank
like, yes,
you. It's
that's my
beautiful.
business. Yeah.
Oh,
And
no, compassion. Tell me more about that. So important.
yeah, I found that people, like it was very difficult for them to reach their goals in fitness if they didn't feel like they were supported. If their trainer was, some people are really good, want this drill sergeant, but some people cannot. That's not an option. And I'm one of those people. And so I really branded myself as someone, and a big clientele of mine was the LGBTQ plus community, and then also members of the recovery community. And then elderly people were also my jam. And like people, like it really was like, I want a personal trainer that's going to be nice to me while also like showing me how to move my body in a safe way. And my business has since transitioned. It's the same business, but now it's transitioning into the Vantage Sensitivity. So I do
Mhm.
incorporate some fitness, just more as like a knowledge base to help people really lean into like their specific way of regulating their nervous system, because it won't be the same for everybody. It's going to be very individual. But that was my beginning of being like, okay, people just need to feel safe and they will excel. And so I really wanted my business to be like people would know right away my intention by the name.
I had a visceral response to it. The word compassion has a vibration to it that is quite heavenly. I had an experience with the angel of compassion last year, and I started realizing how compassion has been weaving its way into my life, my whole life. And it was exciting to see somebody else use the language of it so intently, and it was just clear. And I'm really deep into the work of Kristen Neff, who has a scientific measurement of how self compassionate you actually are, compassion, and what does it mean to you, and why is this so important to you? And it seems to be a core philosophy in all the work and how it intersects.
Yeah, honestly, compassion, I use it in a way like people my whole life, difficult people can really mess me up.
Yeah.
Like they can really impact me. And I let that happen for, I'm in charge of my emotions, I'm in charge of my feelings. And for many years, big personalities or overwhelming people would really impact me.
Mhm.
And I got to a place in this sort of self compassion, trying to build self compassion, where I really started to see, I don't know, people's poor behaviors is a sign of their internal chaos, I
Yeah.
believe. And when I see now, when people are, you just have like weird encounters that get a little overwhelming or whatever, like I feel like that compassion that I've really leaned into, I can use in those moments and be like, okay, this person is just coming from a really difficult situation. And for some reason, you know, unregulated. They just feel really unsafe in this moment and they're reacting to that unsafety. And I think that's how I've really leaned into compassion, because otherwise there's the self-compassion, of course, but like compassion for other people, I just have to really lean into that. Otherwise, challenging people can really disrupt my day.
100%. I will say, in my experience, I've always had an innate compassion for other people and other things, but the self compassion has been my own personal practice and work that I forget all the time. I'm like, how can I extend this level of compassion to everyone around me, but lack it within myself? I'm like a drill sergeant to myself. And I have to do this inner dialogue because I have a busy mind. So it's about using it for me and not against me. And I have to say the phrase to myself, is there space for compassion here? Like that inquiry, is there some space for some compassion here? And I do
Mm,
that even when people trigger me and I have to react to it. It's just that holy space, if even for a moment. Is there space for compassion here in this moment? Like,
yeah.
what would compassion say? So, I just wanted to bring that word into the interview because it was prevalent on your profile and like your presence is very compassionate
Mm,
indeed. And I think we can definitely use like a lot more of that in the healing arts space without a doubt.
yeah. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, you're going to be creating this program with your findings. When are you going to be graduating ish?
So yeah, I'm just about to start my second year.
Mhm.
And so I've got my fitness with compassion, and then I've got my Vantage Sensitivity training program that I'm probably going to launch maybe in November.
Okay.
And so I'm still putting things together for that. But I'm still doing fitness with compassion because it's like Vantage Sensitivity is going to be a little more transformational than fitness with compassion. We'll do mindfulness techniques and stuff, but it really comes down to working out and just saying managing your general health. Where Vantage Sensitivity is more going a little bit deeper with the physical and the emotions and limiting beliefs and nervous system. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's far more encompassing and holistic.
I love that. So, in the meantime, you're going to be coming in the collective to do monthly self-compassion circles, I think you said. So, what can we expect from that? And you know, I'm going to be there.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
nice.
am
I
so
love
excited
it.
for this.
Yeah, so I am launching couple other support groups and stuff and little workshops that through my
Mhm.
website. But on this platform, what I am hoping to demonstrate is just really introducing highly sensitive people because I feel like if they're on your platform, they're going to fall somewhere on that, I feel. And just really recognizing like your sensitivity to your environment is an advantage. And let me show you how. And make it like an incredible asset in your life. And I feel like when people can identify that, it will make them better energy workers for themselves because they'll be able to really understand their emotions versus someone else's experience and emotions, and really like building strong communication and boundaries with the people in your life. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's where I'd like to go with it. And just different exercises. I talked about polyvagal theory and just different exercises like that. Maybe one morning we might put on Florence and the Machine and dance around or something. Just
Okay.
something that really gets in the body and people just appreciate how they're feeling. Really checking in with yourself. Like, how am I feeling today? What am I feeling in this moment?
Yeah, I love that. I'm so looking forward to it. And you've been enjoying the community so far. It's been great to get to know you better.
Yeah, it's been such a needed space for me. And it's funny that I'm here with you. 2 years ago is when like this whole like mediumship and psychic and all that came about. And it freaked me out at first. And it was your podcast and another mentor that I have that just made me feel like, okay, I'm not losing my mind. This is good. This is fun. This is going to be amazing. And so I really can't thank you enough for what you put out there because it gave me the courage to to go for it and
Yeah.
really lead into this because it's strange. It's very strange when you start to experience things like this and you don't have a support structure in place. And so what I found in your podcast and just being part of just having you like looking into your what you offer, it's been really life-saving, to be
Oh, good.
honest. I discovered I was a medium very accidentally. It was just over years of developing a really solid meditation practice. And then all of a sudden I was like, what is happening? Because it
Mm,
was all through impressions and feelings. There's never anything I see. It's all just like very emotional and feelings and sensation based.
yeah.
I love doing the mediumship, and it's amazing how when you demonstrate such unique evidence, how it can just shift someone's life. It's amazing what a really good mediumship reading can do for somebody. And I really love that, but I just feel so called to really lean into right now really helping people. So when I connect with someone, I can feel what they're feeling and I really can interpret their experience. And when I work with someone and identify that for them, and
Mhm.
they can, like, we work together on that, it can be so rewarding to be recognized,
Yeah.
just to be like, oh, that is how I'm feeling. And to be recognized is just such a powerful way. And to be able to do it in an energetic way is so meaningful to people.
Yeah.
I think that sort of reading can transform a therapy session. Like, it's incredible just how really doing an energy reading with someone can really just change their life and change my life too, just watching the healing that can take place because it was the healing that told me like, okay, this is real, this
Yeah.
is like people are responding to this, so I must be doing something right.
And I'm so curious because it's an impression, it's a feeling. Is that also how you describe it? Do you pick up like their personalities or like the emotional relationship that they held when they were embodied?
Yeah, yep. I it all at once. It's thoughts, and the thoughts always feel very different in my body than my own.
Yeah.
And when I get into that state, I can really there's a no it's in my mind's eye. I'll have my eyes closed and I will see the individual, but the individual is not opening their mouth, but it's
Mhm.
just it's like a data transfer between us. It's amazing.
Yeah,
But then I will also, because the point is to provide some evidence for this individual who that I'm reading for, that can really tell them like, okay, something is going on here. And it's amazing how unique the information can be, but it is feelings based, it's very emotional. Sometimes I'll have, okay, I'm falling off a building, and that's a message. There's different sensations that will happen that will just lead me down that path that I need to pull that information and communicate it. It's an interesting process. Yeah.
I
But
know.
it happens all at once so quickly. It's hard to be like, okay, what?
I know it's
You know?
synesthesia. I personally believe we
Mm,
receive everything claircognizantly, and then the other clairs make sense of it, right? A
yeah.
filtering process almost. It's like, where do I
Mm,
recognize this? Okay, I remember this feeling. I've seen this visual, and so I feel we receive everything claircognizantly as like an imprint, like you say, that
mm,
kind of that impression that you get, and then I feel like we process and make sense of it through what do I see, what do I feel, what do I know? But I think that we receive everything like right there. And then as we build our claircognizance, which is connected to the solar plexus, which is connected to spiritual self-esteem and confidence, we actually work more claircognizantly. But I
mm.
do like to ask these specific questions just for the spirit school listeners, because people are always like, how do you get that? I'm like, if I asked 10 mediums, you would get 10 wildly different answers. And I always like to show the uniqueness of the language of spirit because it is so unique and personal. It's a personal
Mhm.
language. And so I always like to have people like try to describe it so that people know it's more accessible than you think. And it's really hard to describe, but there's like a synesthesia effect. And I call it, when I teach mediumship, it's like pulling on a thread of consciousness. And you'd mentioned something like that earlier. And like you just stay with that thread. And I can tell when I'm off the thread, my body tells me, it's like,
Mm.
oh, I'm cold. I know I left that stream of consciousness over there and I'm going to go over here. And it's fine. I think it's just so fun to figure out. And I think the day I have it all dialed is the day I'll move on to something else, because I think a lot of people who are spiritually inclined are just thirsty for knowledge and continuous learning, right?
Yeah, and I think that's part of just listening to what you were saying, just like these experiences, really getting to know yourself so
Hmm.
that you know when you're doing the interpretation work, you know what's yours and what's not, and
Yeah.
what your biases are, what your judgments are, what are your reservations that can influence the reading, and just being very aware of your emotional and mental health, I think.
Know thyself,
Know
right?
thyself.
Know thyself. Okay, one thing I am asking everyone before I let you go, and I'll let you, I do want you to share your website so people can keep an eye on these offerings that are coming through and come in the collective if you want to experience the circles that you're going to be leading. But one thing I'm asking all the spirit schoolers before I leave them is day one, will developing lost little innocence, the world is my oyster spiritually self. With what you know now, what would you tell day one will self as for advice?
Yeah, what I in this took a long time, and only in the last couple months have I been like, oh, that's it. Self confidence. Work on your self confidence. Trust yourself. If you don't trust yourself, if you have a subconscious belief system running in the background that you're not really aware of that is affecting your self confidence, it will affect your everyday life. Find a way to trust yourself. Learn who you are. Yeah, I, I think that's the thing that has kept me back because I know I'm a good medium. I know I'm a good psychic. Like when I lean into it, oh my God, it's wild how good I am.
Yeah.
But I know that it's within my self confidence that I can hold myself back because I will self doubt and then I will get into that shame loop. And so it really comes down to knowing who I am and how things affect me. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful advice. I'm sure a lot of people will heed that and work towards that. Thank you, Will, for coming on the Spirit School podcast. How can people stay in touch with you and learn more about all the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I've got a couple websites, fitnesswithcompassion.com and
Mhm.
then vantagesensitivitytraining.com. And the Vantage Sensitivity isn't going to, it's probably going to be like maybe 2 more weeks before it's up, but Fitness with Compassion is up now and I'm redoing that one as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate this. It's wonderful.